Welcome to A Cupful with myself, Keabetswe Boya, a safe, honest, and open space that aims to help you navigate healing, growth, and just overall prioritizing your well-being. It is guaranteed to get uncomfortable for sure, and very vulnerable. But more than anything else, an opportunity to enjoy the peace that comes with actively working on yourself. Here's to lots and lots and lots of full cups. Hello, community. Thank you for joining me in a new week for a new episode of A Cupful. I really appreciate the listens, interactions with posts on Instagram, and just the overall support I get from all of you. So thank you so much. I am always really looking forward to recording an episode, but today I am extra excited because of who I will be speaking to. So if you listen to the radio, specifically 5FM, then you have heard her name and her incredible voice. Award-winning DJ, an MC and YouTuber, one of the most grounded, hardworking and talented individuals I know. The absolute phenomenal Keabetswe Boya. Girl, it's so good to have you here. Oh my God. I'm so excited. I need to...
First of all, what an intro. I'm just like, is she talking about me?
I'm talking about you. You know I'm talking about you.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You know what? The wheels keep moving. You've got to keep moving even when things are difficult. And how are you?
I am recovering from September. Okay, September at hand. And a lot of people will tell you, apparently 5 planets were in retrograde. And, so I'm at a place where I'm just doing the best that I can, honestly.
Which is enough.
Yeah.
I'm with you. You're doing more than enough.
Yeah.
As long as you're content with that, you are doing more than enough. And today we're going to be getting into a couple of things. But before we do, just as a very brief introduction, please let us know who is Keabetswe Boya.
So I thought about this question because you sent it to me and I was like, yo, she's coming in guns blazing. Solely because I think most of the time when this question is asked, there is an expectation of having a set, definite sense of self.
Yes.
So I will tell you, Gia is A, B, and C. In the moment, I don't really resonate with who I believe Gia is. But actually not Keabetswe. At the moment, I don't resonate with who I believe Keabetswe is. At the core of my being, I believe I am love.
Yes.
I believe and I know that I am here for a purpose.
Yes.
Right? I believe and I know that I am spirit. I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience. So at the core of who I am, at the core of Gia, that is who I am. I don't always resonate with that. I always strive to be that. I always strive to live in love. Those who hear me will hear me. Those who don't hear me, that's okay. I always strive to be that version of myself. And I think that is the version that we truly are at the core of who we are. So that is who Gia is. What Gia does, I am a radio personality and I embody so many roles. I am a sister, I am a daughter, I am, a friend. I DJ as part of who Gia is. I also have a YouTube channel called the Gia Boya channel. And yeah, that is all the add-ons to the core of who I am.
Oh my goodness, wow. You know what? Sorry to everyone that's listening. Not really sorry. I will be swooning over Gia for the rest of the episode. All right. If you hear me going, wow, oh my gosh, I'm emotional, just go with it.
Girl, get it together.
I'm going to try my best. That was if anything, it was an incredibly honest answer that you gave. It's given me quite a lot to think about,
Mm,
because when anybody asks me to briefly introduce myself, I talk about everything that I do and not
yeah,
necessarily who I am as a person.
yeah.
So from the get go, Gail is already, she's got us thinking. I hope we're all doing that. Um, the core of what we're going to be talking about today is the link that you have found between healing and growing and finding your purpose. Uh,
Mm.
so, when would you say you started understanding the importance of making your well being, healing, and growth a priority?
So I've shared this on my YouTube channel before, where I was basically sharing how um it's important, like how I actually learned, or when I learned
Mm.
the importance of taking care of myself. And it was back in, I don't remember the year, but I was 15. I was
Okay.
15, and I remember the first point of self care was journaling that I had been introduced to. And
Yeah.
then the second time when I actually was equipped with the tools of learning how to care for myself was when I was 17 and admitted in hospital due to depression. So then that was the first time I was introduced to the reality that there actually is a way of you, like for you to take care of yourself. But I think it really started dawning on me, and I started implementing it when I got to varsity.
Mm, mm,
Um, varsity can be such a crazy period, the period of transition, the period of self-discovery.
one of it.
Um, so yeah, so that's when I really just started taking the journey of self-care a lot more serious.
Yeah, yeah. No, I can definitely understand that. Also, variety exposes you to so much, so many people, so many
Absolutely. Absolutely.
perspectives.
So many experiences.
Yes, so explore so many different ideas. And
Mm.
wow, yeah, yeah, I completely agree. I completely understand. How did it lead you to understanding and getting comfortable with the work that you know you are called to do?
Um, so I don't know if you know this. You probably do because you were also in radio with me, but like a lot of the work that I do requires me to share a lot of who I am,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes,
And
yes.
being on radio is all fun and games, but like
Mm,
really you're just like building a relationship with people that you don't know, and like really just letting people into your own life experiences and
mm,
building those relationships based on that element of relatability.
yeah,
So, for me, dude, self-care is important, even if it's just one thing, like,
yeah.
um, even if it's just one thing that I do before my show. I know that sometimes when I'm not in a great space, like the one thing that I would do is just like pray to God before my show and be like, dude, carry
Mm,
me,
mm,
because the life of your work, or the work of your life, does not stop because you're not in a grand space, or you feel
yeah,
like, oh, I don't want to do this today, or I don't feel like doing this.
yeah.
So really it's just sometimes you really try to be intentional about, like, sticking to the tools that you have, the things that you know are good for you. So
Yeah.
for instance, like, meditating and journaling, and sometimes you're just like, I don't know how to do this, and you find an easier alternative. So I think, honestly, the fluidity of personal self-care and spirituality in my life has
Mm,
really helped me to kind of do the work that I'm called to do, or that I believe I'm called to do, even in moments when I feel like, yo, how the hell am I going to carry myself through this,
mm,
And I think that's important. So yeah, I think that trying to be in touch with myself, either through self-care or through my spirituality,
mm,
is quite important to me,
mm.
and in the work that I do as well.
100%. And I think self care looks different for everyone, right? But once you get into self
Absolutely.
care is you, and you figure out how it allows you to just show up and be present, you are able to do more of it. And then
Absolutely.
a very balanced life in terms of stop, wait, knowing when you need to
Mm,
move, knowing when you need to give yourself a chance to reflect on
mm,
things. So I think
mm.
that it's so amazing that you've allowed yourself to get to a point of knowing what self care looks like for you. And obviously, you're not going to tell a person, "Oh my God, go buy yourself bath salts." That's self care for
Ugh,
everyone.
ugh. Listen,
That's so,
that's like that's like the first like level of self-care. Like, and I
yeah.
think that's also something that I really started to understand. Like,
Mm,
self-care is there is personal self-care, there's mental self-care, there
yeah.
is, spiritual self-care, and there are some, like, in the same way that you engage in hygienic activities in the morning.
Mm,
Self-care is the same thing, and it's in different aspects of our lives. So I'm not opposed to like the bubble baths and
mhm, mhm.
the eating yourself, but dude,
Yeah.
it goes way deeper than that. Like, it goes to a point where you really have to be self-aware and understand what your needs are in that moment, because it's very easy for us to just go through life neglecting our needs,
Yeah.
um because we are so out of touch with who we are in that moment or in that season or in that phase. And it's just a thing where you really don't have like all the tools, but that's when self-care is important,
Yes.
to, like, when you don't feel like doing it the most, that's
Mm,
when you really have to dig deep. And
yeah.
sometimes the bubble baths and the washing our hairs really just like does help and makes you feel good, but it's
Mm,
it's it's really going a lot more deeper
yeah,
than
that's true.
yeah, the bubble baths, Jesus is um
You got-
and yeah, and I think
yeah.
that's also just what I'm learning, and that's where the real work is.
No, I 100% agree. And you said something really important that sometimes, if you don't, in so many words, if you are not careful, or you just aren't focused about it, and you don't prioritize your well-being, you can sometimes just go through life, without realizing that you are actually going through life. You're just moving. Like, it's just, you're
Absolutely, you
just
just in the emotions of
you're just in the motions. So I really want to know, when you reflect on your life thus far, what
mm.
would you say has changed the most for you from the day or period when you started being intentional about your well being to today, like in this very moment? What would you say you can look back on and say that it's definitely changed? It looks so different for you now.
I think a better understanding of myself,
Yeah.
just being able to see why I do the things I do and how
Oh,
I can be
yes.
better,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
And I think that is so important in every relationship.
Mm,
Like, an understanding of who you are enables you to shed a light to the people in your life about who you are. I don't know if that makes
mm.
sense. Like,
No, I'm here.
for instance, if fine, you can spend time with people and get to know them, but there's
Yeah.
sometimes where you do things and you don't understand why it is you do the things you do. But if you have
Mm,
an understanding of yourself, and you really are reflective, and you have cultivated a relationship with yourself, and you are self-aware, it's easier for you to say, actually, A, B, and C happened because B and C triggered me, or
mm,
because my thoughts were going in this direction, or because earlier there's something that happened, and
mm,
now I'm in a state, and hence I am reacting in this way, to you. So I think that having a better understanding of self really does enable you to bring people into your life. And it also, that's the first. And secondly, it also enables you to go to the most vulnerable parts of yourself, like to
mm.
really see yourself and to really face yourself, which is, I think, very difficult for a lot of people.
Mm.
um But I think the more you do it, the easier it becomes, like the easier that process becomes. And I think I've been lucky enough to afford therapy to help me with that, like to sometimes help me see myself. So I think that those would probably be the two most like important things: the better understanding of myself and just accessing the really vulnerable parts of myself that I think a lot of people are really afraid to tap into.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? When you said afraid, the first word that is courage. You know, it's easy to speak of things
Yes.
like taking care of yourself, well-being, but
Yes.
sometimes that getting to the core of things, and you know, dealing with childhood trauma, right? When you're going to the very core
Oh,
of things, is so scary.
oh,
It's so
mm.
uncomfortable. It's so painful, and it takes a lot of courage. So I think that it's amazing when a person says this is hard and it's very painful, but I'm going to be courageous and I'm going to keep pushing through and I'm going to do my best about it, because this
I
is not a task. It
I
isn't an
really
easy task.
yeah, I really think that that is also just really an important part of self-care. Like
Mm,
just having the courage to
yeah,
start,
yeah, yeah.
and
Mm,
I know that dude, it's a journey.
mm. It
It's a
is.
lifelong journey that
Yes.
requires courage, and even you being off your track,
Mm,
going back, starting a new day and being like, you know what, I didn't journal yesterday, let me journal today. Or I didn't journal in the morning, let me journal in the afternoon. I think sometimes the idea of things being um like set and steady is sometimes really just what really messes up with our progress as individuals. Like earlier when you asked me, who are you, I was like, that question has like this thing of, I need to give you A, B, and C straight
mm,
facts. But like as people, we're constantly evolving. As people, um we are, constantly discovering who we are, and self-care in itself is a lifelong journey, you know,
mm.
and it's never
Yeah,
too late for anyone to start. Like,
yeah. No, it isn't. That's true.
yeah,
Very,
yeah,
very true. It's too late for anyone to start. You can make that conscious decision and then take baby steps. And you know what? You're going to figure things out as you go along.
absolutely,
But
absolutely.
it's also never a good thing to think that because of you're a certain age, you know, that there are things that are beneath you, or there are things that you are too late for or too late to do.
Mm,
That
mm,
is not true. You are only actually going to be able to live a really fulfilling life if you approach the things that you need to approach and you deal with them as you should deal with them. And that's why, like you
absolutely.
said, I like that you said that for you, therapy has been very helpful. I know that there are
Yeah,
people who don't have access to that resource.
yeah,
There are other people that do. And I think it's something that it's a huge investment. Like just how, you know, we talk about how wigs are an investment and makeup can be an investment
yes.
and clothes. And, you know, for people that use our voices like you and I, like
Mm,
voice classes or watching
mm,
YouTube videos on how best to use your voice in
mm,
different things, it's the same thing with therapy. So I think it's a good way to look at it as an investment, as something that is really going to make a huge difference.
absolutely, absolutely.
100%. So we've like really covered a lot that has to do with, you know, self-care and our understanding of what it is. um I really want to get into the responsibility we have towards ourselves and others to dedicate enough time to working on ourselves. It really is always easy to just leave things alone, just never
Oh,
deal with
dude.
the trauma, just
uh,
party the worries away or
no,
shove them.
dude. No, dude. And you know what? I got to a point where, I'm sorry to cut you short, but I got to a point where I sometimes understand why it's so difficult for people to be intentional about growth,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not
That's
easy.
it's not easy, and you know
Yeah.
it's really not. It's a lot less work to do when you live by that's just who I am and that's just how I live. You know,
Yeah,
you know,
like,
you know what I mean. That's just what I do. It's who I am. It's
yeah,
really,
but I
really.
think, I think the unfortunate part of that is you find yourself in a cycle where
Mm-hmm.
you are, how can I say this? Like, you want things to be different, but you're so attached to
Mm-hmm.
who you are that
Yes.
you don't, you're scared. I think it's fear, most people. I
It is.
think for most people, it's
Mm,
fear
mm,
of
mm,
being
mm.
different. You don't even tap into that. And I
Yeah.
guess that's also why we say that, honestly, self-care does require courage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, 100%, 100%. So, where and how, from your perspective, do we start with holding ourselves accountable as individuals and then holding each other accountable as friends and family? Like, where would you say we should start? Because, like I said, it's very easy to say, I'm not, this is how I am. And then you can just say to your friend, or you can say about your friend, this is just who this person is. And there's really not much I
Mm,
can do. Where are we
mm.
starting with accountability?
Yo, I think, honestly, if we cultivate a relationship of honesty with ourselves,
Mm,
because I think for a lot of
mm,
people, like, guys, people sometimes get comfortable living in deceit, and not just like
yeah.
deceit of other people, but deceit of themselves and who they
The-
are,
Oh, mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
And
Ah,
and I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday,
yeah.
um, that I do not want to find myself in relationships that, even like any kind of relationship, whether it's personal, whether it's friendship, but mostly friendships. I do not
Mm.
want to find myself in friendships that coddle my bad behaviors and bad habits.
Wow,
And
I say that 10,000 times. Just
right,
louder.
like,
Oh my God.
if you don't call me out on my BS, like, what are you even doing in my life?
Mm. Mm.
You know, um,
Yeah.
and that, like, that's to speak to the fact that we're not islands. And when
Mm-hmm.
we are in relation to other people, sometimes people become mirrors of who we are.
Yeah.
And you could either like the image that you're seeing, or you don't like the image that you're seeing. And if you don't like the image that you're seeing, then do something about it. And I think that's where the personal accountability comes in, because it's not an easy thing to, like I say, be honest with yourself and say, yo, but I messed up there, you
Mm.
know. And let me investigate within myself why it is that I messed up in that way, you
Yeah.
know. And once you, luckily, if you can go through the process of therapy, or there's a lot of information that is available on the internet right now, when it comes to self-care and, like, being intentional about your growth.
Yeah.
Once you find something where you're like, shoot, this could be the reason, then it's your responsibility. Like I'm saying, it goes back to understanding yourself as well. It's your responsibility to try and work on that thing, and also to shed that light into the people in your life, to be like, guys, now if I'm being honest, I struggle with A, B, and C, but,
Mm.
and sometimes it's really encouraging. You'll be like, but I'm working on it, because
Mm.
sometimes it's not that easy to work on things that you
Oh, yeah.
cannot see, or you're
Oh,
not
yeah.
aware of, you
Oh,
know.
yeah.
So the accountability within self, I believe, comes when you are honest with yourself, and you are able to kind of communicate that to the next person, and be like, and without, sometimes without defensiveness, without excuses, because
Yeah.
sometimes those two things can be the things that hinder genuine connection, because it
Yeah.
requires you to be vulnerable.
Yes. Oh,
It
that's
requires
so.
you to be vulnerable. Like, it's
Mm.
not easy to say, actually, that was my fault. Sorry.
No, it really isn't. It's very difficult, actually. It's
Yeah.
very, very.
Yeah. Yeah. In any form of a relationship. So I think that the personal accountability can only come with honesty, like
Mm.
internal honesty, and really looking at yourself without being internally defensive, because you can be like, "Nigel wrong. Mara, ebile, you shouldn't have," you know?
Yes, it's very easy to do that. It's very easy to go down that road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
even if it's an internal conversation that you're having with yourself. So sometimes just let the ego rest.
Yes,
Sometimes,
yes.
like look at yourself and be like, "Eh, okay, fine, this person made me feel A, B, and C,
Mm,
but my contribution to this was that. That's personal accountability." And then going back to
mm,
the person and saying, "Hey, A, B, and C happened. So I'm really sorry. Um, but I now understand that it's because B, C, and I think also as a person that is on the receiving end, it's important to hold space for the
yeah,
people in our lives, right?
yeah.
As we're not
Mm,
perfect, especially in our in our 20s, we're not perfect. There are a lot of things about ourselves that we are discovering. There are a lot of things
yeah.
that we are learning.
Mm,
There are a lot of, childhood traumas that we are trying to address.
mm,
And sometimes hold space for the people in your life, especially
mm,
people that can be accountable for their actions. And I mean, obviously, you decide how much space you hold for somebody. And when you
mm,
feel like, you know what, I need to draw a boundary here, that's also perfectly fine. But
mm,
I think it's important to hold space for individuals that are able to be accountable for their actions, and also just keeping people accountable, in terms of relationships.
mm.
Sometimes sharing the vision of who you want to be with the people in your life, or even sometimes just people remembering the essence of who you are. Like,
Yeah,
we know you to be this person, and we know that you are not yourself. What's going on?
yeah.
So I think I think personal accountability and accountability with the people that we are in relation with, is very close knit.
Very true. Oh,
Yeah,
very true. Oh,
yeah,
wow. Yes.
yeah,
Actually, you're not lying at all. You're very, very
yeah,
right. It is. It is
yeah.
very, and that's why. That is why I hear it a lot from podcasts by Black women. They like to
Mm,
say that when you surround yourself with people that do not hold you accountable, the chances
mm,
that you are going to want to hold yourself accountable are very, very, very little. They are
absolutely.
very little. So it's
Ab-
important to have a good community around you. And when I say good community, not just friends that are going to help you pick out outfits, and friends that are going to give you advice about, whatever you need advice about,
mm,
but friends, so like you said, not going to coddle your bad behavior. They aren't going to
yes,
coddle. They're going to be honest, and it's very, very easy once you've created relationships that have good foundations like that for people to be honest with you without breaking you apart.
absolutely.
Very, very easy. So yes, you're right. They are very, very close together. You
Mm,
It's vice versa as well. If you
mm,
are not going to surround yourself with good people, how are you going to be able to hold them accountable? If you're
absolutely.
surrounding yourself with people, how are you going to do that? It's like people that always, always, always think that they're right, and they're unteachable, and they just don't have the qualities that you would be looking for, or qualities of a human being that you would be able to say, look, I think you need to stop in your tracks. This is not
Mm,
working. You aren't
mm.
moving in the right direction. And you know what? We aren't islands, like you said, which is very
We're not.
important.
We're
We live
not.
in community. We are in communities by virtue of work spaces, going to school, living,
Yeah,
or from the families that we do. We are in
yeah.
community. It is. And so, as a person, if you want to walk around and act like you live alone and you breathe
Or you don't
alone,
need people to please,
no, exactly, no. No,
like, no.
please, please. So please listen to what Gia and I are saying right now. Hear us. We are begging you, especially the
A
younger
word
to
to
them.
the wise.
Yes, yes, yes. Especially to the much younger girls who are right at the beginning of their 20s. Just please surround yourself with good friends, good people, and don't be afraid to hold people accountable also. Whether you're holding your family members accountable, whether you're holding your friends accountable,
It's
same.
not easy.
not
It's
easy.
a thing.
It's
It's not
it's
easy,
it's definitely not.
because
Yeah.
holding people accountable sometimes comes with a lot of change in the relationship.
Oh yes, and sometimes very
Right?
often uncomfortable change.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable. Like,
Mm.
it's not easy, dude. It's really not easy. And that's what I'm saying. Like, in the same way I used to say, for people that have dropped out of varsity, I completely get it. And for
Yeah.
people that have graduated, I salute them. I say the
Yes.
same thing in terms of like people that are able to cultivate friendships and relationships and genuine
Mm.
relationships. Because, I mean, before, for somebody that does not have this knowledge and then they stumble upon this podcast and now they try and implement the things that they have learned in this podcast, that
Mm.
brings change in itself.
Oh yes. Oh my goodness. Yes,
You
you're
know?
touching on something important. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that brings
Yeah.
change in itself. And there's just been this comfortability. Like, dude, we've been
Mm.
rolling like this for the past 5 years. What is this thing? What are boundaries? Like,
Yeah.
what with? Like, what are you talking about? You know?
Mm.
And some people are not gonna like that. And some
Mm.
people are not gonna appreciate that. And like,
Yeah. Mm.
it's so easy to recline and go back to a space of,
Yes.
yo, you know what, let's just keep this as it was, you know, and just not be these people who keep each other accountable. But I think if you're really somebody that's intentional about the personal growth, there's going to come a time where that space is not conducive for your growth
Yeah.
anymore. And
Yes.
unfortunately, this is where people grow apart. Or
Yeah.
fortunately, I don't know, this is where people separate. This is where people, lose friends because I am gravitating towards this person and you're not coming along with me on the journey. Now what?
Mm.
So it's not easy.
No, it's not. Wow. Yes. I just want to echo your thoughts. I will always encourage, prioritizing growth and healing. But
Absolutely.
the reality is it is going to change a lot of your relationships. It will change them
Absolutely.
for the better, but it could also mean you need to let go of this person.
Yes.
um it's going to mean you need to let go of certain things, habits that you had uh, you
Yes.
know developed, and certain parts of yourself that are just not good for you anymore, and that is going to be very difficult. It's going to be uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and very important to make it clear that, of course, we find ourselves in places like this where we can talk about these things and reflect on our own lives and our own journeys thus far, because like you said,
Mm,
it is a lifelong journey and we're
mm,
able to reflect on our own growth. But when we started, if you think about it, when you started and you were getting going, ah, uh, no
you know
way.
what?
It was
It's
so hard.
difficult. And I think also sometimes you make mistakes along the way. Like,
Yes, yes.
remember earlier on, I was speaking about holding space for people.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when you are in a journey of like evolution and like self-care, sometimes you're the person that doesn't hold space for people
Yeah.
because you get into this space where you're like, you're not like me, so I'm going to cut you out, you know.
Are you
Meanwhile,
Are you dragging me? Yes, you are. Because I've been there too.
same, dude. And mostly
Yeah.
with my friendships.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I've
Yes. Yes.
literally been in a space where like I was like, oh no, you're not like me, so I'm gonna cut you out. Or. And
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it's like understanding that this person might not necessarily be like me in this particular area, but there's
Very.
still areas in my life where I appreciate them. And I think one of the major mistakes that I did in my earlier friendships was wanting a friend to become all encompassing. So,
Oh my.
wanting my friend to
Wow.
be as spiritual as I am,
Yeah.
as outgoing as I am,
Mm-hmm.
as this as I am, being all in one.
Yeah.
And I think now that I'm growing older, I'm starting to realize that different types of people serve different purposes in your life. So
You.
we all have that one friend whom, whenever you want to turn up, you can hit them up. We all
Yeah.
have that one friend, whenever you want to go to church, you know you can hit them up. We have another friend, or even if it's just groups, whenever you want to go and waste your money, you can hit them up. You know, we can always, ball out on experiences, restaurants, and whatnot. You hit them
Yeah.
up. And sometimes people are lucky enough to find all all of those different elements in one person, right?
Good.
So luckily you are able to have a friend who's spiritual, a friend who understands the importance of self-care, a friend that also
That's good enough.
is outgoing, a friend that knows how to, like, lucky, sometimes lucky enough you are able to find a person that has a little bit of everything that you need in them. So yeah, dude. But I think also the biggest thing, especially in this journey of self-care, and once you started, because we're talking about like when we started, is
Mm.
forgiving yourself, dude. Like,
Yeah.
self-forgiveness is a huge
Oh, very
part
much.
of self-care. And if at some point you're able to salvage the relationship and be like, dude, I didn't know any better, I'm really sorry, because I think A, B, and C that I did at that time made you feel this way.
Mm.
Luckily, sometimes you are able. I have a friendship like that where we had a serious fight and we didn't speak to each other for a year, but now we've reconciled, and it's like, you know,
Yeah.
like we understand each other and we
Mhm.
accept each other and we hold space for each other. So sometimes it's really important to just get into a space where you're like, you know what, um yeah, I didn't understand at that point, or I was still, trying to figure certain things out. Please forgive me and let's start over, guys. Sometimes just throw away your pride.
There we
Sometimes,
go. Y'all better guess what she's talking about, okay? I'm
like,
forcing you to listen now. You better open your ears and listen.
no, dude. Sometimes, and it's important because it's intentional. Sometimes you don't want to
Yeah.
see people, like, you don't want people to see you in that state where you're groveling, not even groveling, but just like acknowledging the importance of somebody in your life. And it's like, if they're like, no, dude, like, this is it, then you can walk away knowing that you've tried. You know.
That's true. That's
Um. So, yeah, there definitely will be some mistakes that you make in the beginning of your self care journey.
true.
100%.
Mm. Yeah,
Because
and you know what?
sometimes
There's
we
not.
start with the extremes.
Yes, 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 yes. No, there's, there's nothing wrong with that, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We are human beings. We are
Mm,
learning. I like to think of myself as a sponge, and
yeah,
it's been easier to have a sponge approach, or it's made life much easier to navigate. So life is still
absolutely.
very difficult. It can be extremely hard, but I mean that even in the hardness or harshness of it is a lot easier to navigate it than it was before, because I am a
Yeah,
sponge and I am absorbing things and I do know how to apply myself better, and I know when it's time for me to work on fixing something, to let
yeah,
something go. I know when it's time to apologize. I know when it's time to sit down and reflect and
mm,
like see myself as the one in the wrong and
yeah,
correct it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So I really like being a sponge. I enjoy the fact that there's a lot to learn and I am teachable, and it just makes
yes,
being alive and being on earth a lot easier. It really,
absolutely,
really, really, really does. So I think
absolutely.
you've kind of answered this last question that I wanted to ask you, but I'll just ask it. How has your understanding of what a healthy relationship with yourself and others look like, and how has it influenced your day-to-day experiences?
Mm, the pressure is getting worse.
You know, I forgot how funny you can be sometimes. Oh my goodness, please don't start. Ish.
Dude, you know, um, there's a teaching, or a teacher that I listen to
Yeah.
from time to time, and she always reiterates that your only work in this life is to feel good,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, the whole idea of her saying that is that sometimes it's the thoughts that we think
Mm-hmm.
that lead us to a place where we don't feel good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that also comes with the part of being aware. So if I'm aware
Mm.
of my thoughts, if I'm not in a good space, if I'm not happy, right,
Mm.
I
Mm.
have to investigate what it is that I am not, like what it is that I've been thinking that has led me to this place, right?
Yeah.
And I try to be in a place where I feel good with myself,
Mm.
like within myself, right?
Yeah.
And I try to think of the things in my life and the people in my life in a positive light. And I'm not saying I'm being oblivious to some
Mm.
of their shortcomings, but like, let me give you an example. You know, when you've been thinking about a particular person in a certain light, right?
Yeah.
And let me say your mom, for instance, you've been thinking
Yeah.
about her in a particular light,
Mm-hmm.
and those thoughts are recurring, right? And the thoughts that you're thinking are not making you feel good in that moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The moment she talks to you about something, you're gonna speak so like "Otomo futlela," you know,
Yeah.
you're just
Yes.
gonna
Oh my,
respond in a very, you know, like
oh my
uncalled
goodness.
for, right?
You're reading
You
my
know what I'm
mind.
talking about, right?
Yes.
And it's because before that process or before that interaction, you had been thinking some thoughts about this person that were not good and that had been making you feel not good,
Sure.
right? And that affects the interaction that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So, in answering your question,
Yeah.
cultivating a healthy relationship with yourself
Mm.
is you being intentional about thinking good thoughts, thinking
Mm.
happy thoughts. And you know what? I think sometimes to survive this life, you need to be a little delusional. I don't want to lie. Like,
Yes, I want the episode. I want to. I just want to dedicate a whole episode talking about how being delusional helps.
like sometimes there must be a little bit of delusion, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And just there's a saying that says where where focus goes, energy flows, right?
Mm.
So if you're constantly thinking about, like, within yourself, now there's not other people involved. If you're
Mm.
constantly thinking about negative things and you know, or seeing the people in your life in a negative way, there will
Yeah.
be energy that is redirected to that will ultimately result in the behavior that you exhibit towards that person. So in cultivating a healthy relationship with yourself, you really have to find the things that make you happy and be intentional about seeing people and the circumstances in your life in a way that makes you feel good, you know.
Mm.
And I think that will trickle down to the relationships that you have with the people in your life. And like I'm
Day to day
saying,
is
yeah,
yes.
and like I'm
Mm.
saying that, you know, a little bit, I don't want to say a little bit of delusion, but like there's other things that you start cultivating within your relationship, and just understanding that, okay, even though I'm keeping you accountable, it's not from a place of disdain or me criticizing you, but
Yes.
it's from a place of love, you know, and I want us to be better. So I don't know. I think, and listen, when I'm talking to you like this, I'm also talking to myself, like in terms of, you know, working or being intentional about thinking about things that make us happy and seeing the people in our lives in a positive light.
Yeah.
And I think that will really try and help, like, cultivate or at least be the basis of
Mm-hmm.
cultivating healthy relationships, because like I said, at the core of who we are is love. And when you approach somebody with love, it's less likely like that they will be defensive, that they will feel attacked, that they will
Mm,
feel unheard, and sometimes it's very difficult to portray that when you yourself are still regulating your own emotions about the
yeah.
situation. Like you don't always like approach the situation with love and kindness
Mm,
because, dude, I'm pissed. Hello, I'm hurt,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. Um, but then, like, again, that's a whole other thing. Like, like
Mm,
regulating your emotions and being in the
yeah.
wise mind,
Mm,
that yes, I can be emotional or I can be angry, but I can still love you, you know.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's not a how do I say this? It's not a straight and an easy path,
Mhm.
but
It's
it's also not something that is out of reach because I've seen it, you
yeah,
know.
that's
Um,
very, very true. That is so, so true. And you know what? You're so right when you say that at the core of who we are is love. That is the
absolutely
truth.
good.
That is, oh my goodness. Wow. I have enjoyed speaking to you so much, as I always do.
Cute. Ugh, thank you.
Wow, this has been such a beautiful almost hour. I've enjoyed talking about everything that we've been talking about, and I will always appreciate your wisdom. I think that you are very wise. I think that you are very knowledgeable. And like I said, I think that you're one of the most grounded people that I know. Like you have achieved so many amazing things, but that's not what you lead with.
You.
You lead with your purpose, and that's why it was just so fitting for you to come on to a cupful and talk about the things that we spoke about today. And I know that there are a lot of people that listen to this podcast that will take so much away from this episode. So thank you so much
I
for
actually,
great.
I actually just wanna say to your people that Tsegetso and I actually had a conversation about this because this podcast could have easily been 2 hours. Like this episode could
Yes,
easily.
it really could
So,
have been.
so at the beginning, we had to be like, I was like, okay, girl, how much time do I have? So like, I don't go overboard, and like, I hope that I managed to stick to the time that was allocated to me. And
Definitely.
dude, thank you so much. Like, it's always such a like things like this for me are not even that they don't even feel like work because
Mhm,
it's just something that feels so aligned to
mhm,
the person that I am and the person that I'm striving to be. So whenever I'm given the opportunity to speak about my personal journey and what I'm learning and how I am trying, it's
mhm,
always such a pleasure and such a blessing for me that we have spaces like a cupful where we can talk to people who don't necessarily have access to therapy, but the knowledge that we provide here is something that really is tangible advice that people can implement in their lives, because some of us have like the liberty of getting therapy and
yeah.
being able to transfer the knowledge that we learn in those spaces
Mm.
to people that do not have you know such privileges. So thank you for having a platform like this and for pouring into the lives of people in a way that brings them closer to that core that we were talking about.
Thank you so much. I'm only honored. Like you spoke about purpose, you spoke about calling, you spoke about, you know, the fact that or nothing can stop your purpose. Like even if it's rough in your life, even if it's
Mm,
like it seems foggy, you have to keep going. And I feel like
absolutely.
a cupful has, in one way or another, brought me into such a beautiful space in my life. And so I
Mm,
appreciate what this platform is doing for me as well,
mm,
because every time I have different conversations with different people, or I'm even coming on and I'm talking and I'm on my own, it's like I'm learning something new. So
mm,
it feels like everybody's benefiting from it, and we are all in community and we are all sharing, we are all learning to grow and heal, and prioritize taking care of ourselves and taking care of the people around us. So it's only an honor, it's a pleasure. I'm really grateful that podcasting exists at all. A lot of podcasts make a huge difference in my life, and that a cupful is doing the exact same thing in the lives of the people that listen to it and that come across it. So yeah, wow, before I start crying, oh my god, before I start falling apart, right over here.
Girl, get it together.
Let me get it together. This is a good place to end this week's episode. Oh my goodness. Keabi, thank you so much. You have
Thank
made me so
you.
happy. I need everybody to go and listen to Gia on 5FM. Can you please tell
Yeah.
everyone where they're listening to you and when? Well, where?
Okay, so my shows are on Saturday and Sunday, 2 to 6 p.m. on 5FM. Depending on which part of the country you're listening to, but you can download the 5FM app, and you can just like listen at any given time. We also have a segment called Self-Care Challenge on Sundays. So,
Ooh.
right? Yeah.
Yes,
So,
please, 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 please go and listen to Gia. She's just amazing on radio. She's a natural. She always has been. I can only imagine, and I can see it already. Her purpose taking her so far, so far, so much further. I can see it. It's going to happen. She's just
oh,
absolutely
thank you.
amazing. Where can everyone find you on social media? Yes.
Okay,
Wow.
cool. So, go subscribe on my YouTube channel. It's called the Keabetswe Boya channel. Hi, guys. Okay.
That's what's up.
And then on social media, my name is Keabetswe Boya, Keaboya on Instagram. And on Twitter, it's KEA_BOYA.
There we go. There you have it.
Oh,
Thank you
and on
again.
TikTok, well, it's Keabetswe Boya.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, you know what? You could just also like go back. I know there are different functions on different platforms depending on where you're listening to this podcast from. If you need to hear that again, you could just go back. But on this week's post on Instagram on a couple's page, I am gonna have Gia's handle tagged in the caption post. So you are also gonna be able to click on, well, not kick, please. Oh my goodness. Click on that, and then it's gonna take you directly to her page. So obviously you will be able to follow her and just keep in touch with the amazing Gabby. Thank you so much for the time that you've given me. I really appreciate it. I'm wishing you all the best.
Thank you.
I know the rest of the year is going to be a lovely one, a good one. Well, that's what we're manifesting, that's what we're calling
Yes,
on, that's what we're hoping
speak it.
on. Yes, we're speaking it into existence 100%. And thank you to everyone else for lending me an ear. Thank you so much for lending Gia and I an ear. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for supporting a cupful. Please don't forget that you can listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music. The options are many. You can download an episode to listen to it at a time that is most convenient to you, even if you don't have Wi-Fi or data connection. And please don't forget to give a cupful a 5-star rating and share any comment or thought you might have in the comment section of whichever platform you are listening from. On Instagram, it is at @a_cupful, where you can share your thoughts via DM and stay informed about new episodes and any other important information. Please also share the podcast as far and wide as you possibly can. Pretty please. Have a beautiful remainder of this week. Rest when you need to, work when you need to, value your time and existence, and don't forget to keep doing the things that fill your cup up.